thank you. Welcome to the Columbia Rotary Club. Is this not a beautiful spot? It is. We're going to sing, just to remind you now, in case I forget, Jim's going to come up and we're going to sing the Oh Beautiful for Spacious Skies, because it's beautiful here as well at the end of the meeting. But given that we don't have a piano, and I haven't seen Robert Goings here to lead us in another rendition, we are going to stand and say the Pledge of Allegiance and join us.
We have a flag?
Yeah, just turn toward the State House. All right, here we go. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, if you would check your cell phones, put them on silent. Carl Roberts is going to come up and give her indication. Carl, I think you might have to keep the microphone for all of y'all coming up here.
Thank you. Let us pray. Father, the line in the children's prayer says, God is good, and we thank you that you are good. You're good when we're going through great times, and when we're going through tough times, you're still good. We thank you that your character does not change. Thank you that you're always loving and sovereign, and that you walk with us through it all. Father, we thank you for this food that you've provided for us. We thank you that we can gather together in Rotary Fellowship. We pray that you will help us to love and serve you. We pray in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Carl. Four-way test. You know, we don't have a cheat sheet up here.
This really is a test.
But I carry my four-way testicle card in my wallet because I've got to say it on the microphone. I like to cheat every time I do it. So if you can remember, for you guests, the four-way test of Rotary is a four-way test of the things we think, say, or do at all times. Is it the truth? Is it fair to all concerned? Will it build goodwill and better friendships? Will it be beneficial to all concerned? Any of you guys that want to get any of these, put in your wallet and see me after the meeting. Okay, Steve Bryan asked me to let you guys know that just logistically, when we go off site, it just becomes a little bit more of a challenge for lots of things. But cart buckets, hauling them over here from Sewell's, that sort of thing. So we're running a little behind. Last year we had an emphasis on some other things this year, and probably my fault we haven't made a bigger push on the cart bucket. As you know, this is about Alzheimer's research. So our challenge to you is give double or more next week when we're back at Rotary, back at the Sewell's, and be ready to give a little bit. Save up your pennies and quarters and dimes and dollars and $20 bills this week to put in the cart bucket next week. Okay? All right, Morgan, Harold, Morgan, you get the opportunity to do this with a nice background and a little bit of challenge and changing scenery. So here you go.
We've got a few visiting Rotarians today from Forest Acres, Hal Peacock, and from Columbia East, Jim Hudson. Welcome, y'all, and people, you'll stand with your guests. Recognize those, please.
If y'all can just speak loudly, we don't have two microphones, so just speak out with your guests, okay?
I'm Ken East. I have with me today a great nephew, Easton Fezzoletti. He is a 7th grader at Lexington Middle School, and he is shadowing me today. So I'm with him all day long.
I'm Stephen Creech. Happy to have as my guest James Fuller, my friend here. James owns Fuller Management Services, which is a dental practice consultancy here in Columbia, South Carolina. Welcome, James.
I'm Mary Wallback, and I'm happy to have as my guest Jane Quinn. Jane works with me at United Way, and she's the coordinator for women in
my son Peter shown. Peter is also job shadowing today. Peter's a 7th grader at Pleasant Hill Middle School in Lexington.
And I know you all can't tell I'm standing, but I am. I'm Louisa Campbell, and I'm very proud to have as my guest today Julie Smithwick. She is Executive Director of our PASOS program at the University at the Arnold School of Public Health. PASOS means steps in Spanish, but I will tell you that Julie has taken great leaps in promoting the Hispanic population throughout the state. We're really very proud of her. She is a great leader and a rising star at the university, and she's also kin to our very own Jim Smithwick. Please welcome Julie Smithwick.
Ken Childs, I'm happy to have two of my law partners with me today. Jasmine Drain from Gate City, Virginia, who's a graduate of the University of Virginia and Tennessee Law School, and Kathy Mahoney from Irmo, and is a longtime friend of our speaker's partner, business partner.
Thank you, Morgan. Anita Todd, are you ready? Health and happiness? She says she is not singing, even though she's kind of recording you, all right?
Yes, I did bring a boombox, and I didn't see Robert come in. Is Robert going here? Okay, but I promise I'm not going to sing, and since he's not here, he ain't going to sing either. But health and happiness. Unfortunately, got some, mostly sad news. I think that you all got the email that Hal sent out about Charles Blackman, and actually the little note that we got from Diane, his youngest daughter. Very, very touching, and just hope that you all got that information and the address in case you wanted to send a condolence card to the family. Also just found out that Matt Kennel's father, Bob, passed away this past Friday. Apparently he had been ill for some time, but please extend your condolences to Matt as well. Been asked to talk about the blood drive coming up. At the Columbia Metropolitan Convention Center. It is Friday, February 28th from 7 to 5. This is one of 3 blood drives that our Rotary participates in. So please make sure to spread the word, get everybody out there, draining their veins for American Red Cross and the blood drive. Actually on the American Red Cross board, but our blood services division is a little bit separate, but they did ask that you all please come out and participate. I know the need is really, really huge, especially with the weather that we've had, severe weather, and that keeps people from coming out, even the regular donors. So if you can, please do come and, whoops, there's my phone. Sorry. That's what happens when you bring your phone as one of your props. Sorry about that. So anyway, please all come out to the blood drive and help us out with that. I did want to just do a little bit of snow talk. I know everybody probably survived the snowstorm pretty well. But I have just, for those of you that didn't grow up north, you might not understand some of the purpose of this, but just give me a minute, I'll tell this one little joke. On a bitterly cold winter morning, a husband and wife in Dublin, or we could say in Columbia, were listening to the radio during breakfast. They heard the announcer say, "We're going to have 8 to 10 inches of snow today. You must park your car on the even-numbered side of the street so the snowplows can get through." So the good wife went out and moved her car. A week later, while they were eating breakfast again, when the radio announcer said, "We're expecting 10 to 12 inches today, you must park your car on the odd number side of the street so the snowplows can get through. Well, the good wife went out and moved her car again. The next week, they were again having breakfast when the radio announcer said, "We're expecting 12 to 14 inches of snow today. You must park," and then the electric power went out. The good wife was very upset, and with a very worried look on her face, she said to her husband, "I don't know what to do. What side of the street do I need to park on so the snowplows can get through?" Then with the love and understanding in his voice that all men who are married exhibit, the husband replied, "Why don't you just leave the car in the garage All right, and with the Super Bowl now over, how many of you watched to the end of the game? Well, I want to get you in the mood for the Olympics, okay? So please disregard this shameless promotion for the Olympics. And I thought it might be kind of fun if we did some Olympic trivia. So in preparation for that, though, please do indulge me while I try to play you the Olympic theme. Get you in the mood. Okay. Who's ready for some trivia? All right. Which event is new to the 2014 Sochi Olympics? Men's downhill skiing, ice dancing, biathlon mixed relay, or ice sculpting? No, not ice sculpting. Biathlon. You're right. Who's the most decorated American Winter Olympian of all time? Shaun White, Dick Button, Bonnie Blair, or Apollo Ono? Apollo Ono. Good guess. You guys are Olympic savvy. Matt Lauer and Al Roker have teamed up to try all of the following Olympic events except what? Figure skating, synchronized swimming, the luge, and wrestling. No, they did the luge together. No, they actually did synchronized swimming together. Only two left. Figure skating. I don't think you ever saw them out there figure skating in a little tutu and tights or anything. Sochi is also known as what? The Russian Riviera, the Pearl of the Black Sea, the Florida of Russia, or all of the above? All of the above. All of the above. And where will the Winter Olympics be held in 2018? Munich, Salzburg, Austria, Pyeongchang, South Korea, or Tokyo?
South Korea.
Not Tokyo. Somebody say South Korea? Yeah, I just like saying Pyeongchang. Yes, South Korea. And if it's 12 noon here in Columbia, or I should say West Columbia, what time is it in Sochi? 9 p.m., 12 midnight, 6 p.m., or 2 a.m.? 9 p.m. You're right. Ah, you guys are sharp. Anyway, so I hope that was a little fun, and again, I spared you my singing, so have a great day, and I'll turn it back to you.
Thanks, Anita. Appreciate that. We'll all be tuning in, I'm sure, to the Olympics on WIS.
Starts Thursday.
Starts Thursday. Another shameless plug. Not shameless. Not shameless. Okay. Becky, are you ready? We're going to do a quick Paul Harris presentation. Becky Earhart.
Mary Rogers, who's trying to make her career in acting in New York. He is currently a practicing attorney concentrating defense litigation and serves as the senior advisor to the University of South Carolina, where he assists in institutional development, fundraising, and alumni relations. He's a longtime public servant. He served as the state of South Carolina as the U.S. Attorney for South Carolina, appointed by Reagan, and he's also served as the as the Attorney General in South Carolina from 2003 to 2011. He served as the chairman of the South Carolina Republican Party and a member of the Republican National Committee for 9 years. He has also served on the Commission of Higher Education from 1990 to 94, and he currently serves on the Palmetto Health Foundation. And he currently serves, he was appointed by the Governor Haley and serves on the board of the South Carolina Ports Authority. Henry has been a Rotarian since 1982. Henry? Thank you.
Thank you, Becky. Is Rusty here? Rusty to pass? I hope he's not over at SeaWorld hanging out in the parking lot. Okay. We're going to do a new member induction. We are. All right. Okay. So we have a golf tournament that's going to be coming up on April 28th. I want to just remind you of that again. See John Vegas or Carl Byers if you're interested in volunteering to help with that. So I think that's it that I had on my agenda. I'm probably missing something, but without further ado, I'm going to invite our honorary member, Mayor Steve Benjamin, to come up, introduce our speaker and program today. And Steve, we're glad to have you here today. I know you've been in the wind a lot, but as Danita said, we're in West Columbia, but to us, it's all Columbia, and we're glad you're a mayor. Privileged to have you here to introduce Jason to us.
The reason I was able to answer Danita's question about the time in Russia right now is because I just got back from the Middle East last night, and my body is still on a completely different time schedule right now. So I've only seen Jason's presentation about 20 times right now. So I'm going to try my best to stay engaged. You know, about 2 years ago, I had a chance to sit down with the commissioners of both the Carolina League and the Sally League to talk about the possibility of bringing minor league baseball back to Columbia, recognizing that Columbia and Baton Rouge, Louisiana are the only two cities of any significant size, two largest metro areas in the entire country without any professional sports franchises. The meeting went well. It's kind of odd because you have to actually sit there with both of them at the same time because of some anti-competition issues and kind of talk back and forth. But it was a very productive meeting that served as a foundation for this conversation that's been going on for the last couple of years. Looking at the success of minor league baseball in downtown Greenville, in Durham, in Dayton, looking at the success of well-done facilities in Washington, D.C. on the major league level, as well as San Diego and other places, we see baseball done right and done well as a significant potential anchor for economic development in your city. And we've been spending time over the last 2 years developing a model. And I will tell you, over the last 2 years, we've had a number of opportunities to talk to others who've done this other places, several others. We've engaged Brailsford and Dunleavy, a national, well-respected firm, has done this for every sport you can imagine. Done feasibility studies. They came and did one here in Columbia. They have no financial interest at all in this, and they indicated that baseball would be very successful here in Columbia. Coach Tanner has agreed that baseball will be very successful here in Columbia, will be complementary to the offerings of the University of South Carolina. But one thing I wanted to make clear, and certainly I'll be available for question and answers, because some of the questions that you all may have A bunch of bright minds in here, Jason, a bunch of good numbers people as well. Maybe policy questions and finance questions that might be more appropriate for me to answer rather than Jason. I want to make sure I'm available to answer those questions. But in order for this to work, this can't be just about baseball. It's got to be a good, smart investment of our resources that can serve as an incentive to try and grow private sector investment here in Columbia. As we talk about ways in which we can grow the city, and grow the city in the way it ought to grow for the next 20, 30, 40, 50 years, we've got to be much more strategic with a limited amount of funds. Many of you know we are blessed with having the University of South Carolina here in Columbia, multi-billion-dollar economic impact on our economy here, Henry. We're blessed to host Fort Jackson for the rest of the world. We know victory starts here. Also a $1 billion economic impact. Wonderful healthcare infrastructure, churches and synagogues everywhere we go. Because of Strom and Fritz and Clyburn and Spence and Wilson and others, we have a significant federal investment here in this wonderful city and also on this side of the river. And we also, of course, host state government for the rest of the state. But you take that great collection of entities, all of which that contribute significantly to the economic fortunes of this region, and you see none of them pay property taxes. None. Right. And it's so important that as we look forward to how we use limited public resources to try and develop this city and grow a tax base that begins to allow us to lessen the tax burden on our commercial citizens and our residential citizens, we have to think about how we can grow vertically, how we can grow up. Recognizing that the new BB&T Tower in downtown Columbia pays more in property taxes to support the common good than a 500-unit subdivision on the outskirts of town. We recognize our future isn't growing up. This particular development, which is a public facility, with a public ballpark that would have a significant private sector anchor tenant, serves, according to the Brailsford and Dunleavy study that's available on the city's website, I encourage you all to go take a look at it, serves as a wonderful catalyst for significant economic development on the Bull Street campus, but also for this entire region. We're talking about 500,000 people coming downtown every single year for minor league baseball games. We're talking about a place that can host a number of other types of functions, from concerts to Boy Scouts, and certainly I want Jason to be able to give his presentation. I won't give it for him. Now, I want you guys to think outside the box. I will tell you this, and I'll be answering questions, available for questions, both as we present, and some of you who may have more private questions for me after the fact. We can pay for this. We can pay for this without any increase in taxes. We will pay for this without any use of water and sewer funds. This can be done, and done well. Your city that years ago struggled with some fiscal disclosure issues, last year was upgraded by both Standard & Poor's and Moody's. Have a AA+ credit rating. We have cash reserves of over $400 million. We're working every single day to be better stewards of your dollars. But in order for us to grow into the prosperous city of the 21st century we want to become, we're going to have to grow, y'all. We're going to have to grow. So I will tell you, over the course of the last 2 years, as we listen to folks talk about baseball and the way it's helped grow their cities and grow their cities, every conversation I had kept going back to the Fort Wayne model, Some people have done it well. They've done it exceptionally well, recognized by their peers, and hopefully Jason will highlight on that. 2 of the last 3 years recognized as the #1 minor league baseball stadium in the country. The business model that's been struck between Fort Wayne, Indiana, and Hardball Capital and CEO Jason Fryer is one that works very well for us. That will require either a significant 7-figure contribution up front or a significant 8-figure contribution over the course of the life of the lease that we entertain with them. But Hardball maintains all operations and maintenance costs, all capital improvement costs, and it's a significant opportunity. And again, I want you to know that Jason will get into some of it, but I want to make sure that I'm available. Jason won't brag on himself. He's top flight, very well respected by his peers. He's got a couple of Ivy League degrees, which I tell him, hey, doesn't mean a whole lot down here. But he's a bright fellow, and he can handle some questions. But those that are policy-oriented and go to how we finance this and how we do it right, I'm here and available to take those questions from each and every one of you. Jason Fryer, the CEO of Hardball Capital. Jason?
you, and thank you all for having me here. I'm going to zip through this as quickly as I can. I'm going to try to be done in 10 minutes or thereabouts, just so I can spend most of the time answering your questions. So by necessity, some things will probably be a little bit vague as I present them, but hopefully that'll come out. I want to make sure I have enough time to answer any questions people have. But touching on some things that the mayor said. We got interested in minor league baseball because we saw two very positive things. But we also saw one thing that was done wrong. The two very positive things were that minor league baseball is an incredible family-oriented experience. It's a place that has something for everyone. So we have $5 tickets. We sell about 20% of our tickets for $5. It's accessible to everybody in the community. Wholesome way for families with kids to spend time, but also we have areas within our facilities for business entertainment, areas aimed at young professionals and college students. So, and I'll show you a couple pictures in a moment, but the first thing we saw was that it was very accessible and had something for everybody. The second positive we saw, as the mayor mentioned, was in numerous cities, and I'll show you quick pictures of a few of them, these facilities, if done right, if done in a thoughtful fashion, in the right place, have encouraged a tremendous amount of economic development. The one thing that we saw that was done wrong was that even though people were building more expensive and more more complex facilities, these facilities were still open only the 70 days a year that people had baseball games. And that struck us as an enormous waste. Back when people played minor league baseball on what looked like high school fields with bleachers, it was fine if all that happened there was that you played baseball. But as these facilities got more advanced, it struck us that you needed to find a way to use them for more than just the baseball. So I'll start with that. The project that I'll show you a little bit about in a moment that the mayor referenced in Fort Wayne, Indiana, that we did, we're in our 6th year in that facility now, is really a multi-use event venue. And that's what we have planned here for the Bull Street site as well. So the facility that we're talking about would be able to accommodate over 10,000 fans for concerts, things like that, about 8,000 and change for baseball. But we envision hosting over 400 events annually. A little quick math will tell you that's more than an event a day. The first 5 years of our facility in Fort Wayne, we've averaged 440 events a year. And that's despite the fact that the outdoor portions of our facility are not usable 6 months out of the year, because what you guys called a winter storm, they call a balmy day in January. I mean, we've had snow, we've had a foot of snow in April up there on our facility. But the whole idea is that we will host many different kinds of events. Now, a lot of people say on the front end, well, what do we need the baseball part for? Why don't you just build a big event venue? And the answer is something that the mayor mentioned. What you need is an anchor tenant for a project like this. If you go and build an amphitheater or something like that, you start every year with 0 events scheduled. Trying to schedule lots of events with nothing on the slate at the beginning of the year is difficult. Baseball is the best sport for this. Works better. Football, over at Williams-Brice Stadium, you probably have, 7 home games a year? We have 70 home games a year in minor league baseball. So that means 1 out of every 5 days is programmed before we even start adding other things on top of that. Minor league baseball is tremendously popular. A lot of people might not realize that, given the lack of support that there was years ago when there was a team here. But last season, over 41.5 million fans attended minor league baseball games. It's more than attended NFL and NBA games combined. And the last 10 seasons have been the highest attended seasons in minor league baseball's history. So it's trending up. And now I'm going to start accelerating and skipping around. But here are just some concerts of different sorts of events we've had at the venue. We've had major concerts. We have an awful lot of community events. We have other sports. It's a Division I soccer game we host each year between Notre Dame and Indiana. We do an awful lot of charity events, over 100 charity events a year at the ballpark. Somebody was talking about the Red Cross blood drive. We do the largest blood drive in our county every year, 5 years running. We also do private events and functions. I mentioned the idea of the ballpark as a catalyst. And some people have asked me, why did you guys show up in Columbia now? We lost our team 9 years ago. What's special about now? The answer is the Bull Street Project. That is really what made us think now was an appropriate time to bring a facility like this to Columbia. And the reason for that is, Bull Street, as the mayor mentioned, represents an incredible opportunity for the city of Columbia. I mean, 180 acres this close to the downtown core is virtually unheard of in a city this size. At the same time, Bull Street also represents a tremendous challenge. A site that large, it takes something really big to have an impact on that. The project we did in Fort Wayne, they had an area of their downtown, it was only about 40 acres. But that area was south of their convention center, had a really hard time getting any development going. And they sent out RFPs for a hotel 2 different times, got 0 responses. And the hotel said, well, you really have nothing going on there. We're not going to be the first people on that site. You need to get some restaurants, some stores, something down there before we're going to look at building a hotel there. So the city went and tried to offer some tax incentives for restaurants and stores to open there, and they said, yeah, we'll go there after you get a few other people. So there was that typical first mover problem. Bull Street faces the same sort of challenge. If you put an office building, a hotel, even 20 stores out there in the middle of Bull Street, it would look lost given the size of that site. What we're talking about, though, is a venue that, as the mayor said, our venue in Fort Wayne last year drew 534,000 people in a city that's less than two-thirds the size of Columbia. So just over half the size of Columbia. So we think we can draw at least that many to the Bull Street site if we do a similar facility here. Our facility was built in areas we said that was very developmentally challenged. In the decade before we built our facility, there was less than $5 million spent on private development in that area. In the 5 years since, there's been over $100 million of development that is either completed or almost complete at this point, well underway. There's another $71 million project that broke ground this month. And just last week, another project that's a little over $10 million was announced as well. So the city is seeing a tremendous return on its investment through, as the mayor was talking about, things like property taxes and all of that. Our project in Fort Wayne is not unique. To give you an idea, the mayor mentioned Durham. Durham, North Carolina is a little further down the road than we are in Fort Wayne. Durham opened a new ballpark 18 years ago, replacing the ballpark that people will remember from the film Bull Durham. They did it in an economically challenged area of Durham. The building that you see in the upper right-hand corner, that's out past the third base line, before the ballpark was built, even the first year the ballpark existed, was in pretty much the shape the Babcock building is on the Bull Street campus now. The windows were broken. If you went in, you could see through the roof to the sky. That building is now the coolest place in Durham. It's called the American Tobacco Warehouse. They've got the Art Institute is in there. There's a telecom company in there. A bunch of startup companies have offices there. There are restaurants, bars, stores, all of that in this area. But beyond that, there's been a total of $600 million in development within about 1 city block of that ballpark in 18 years. People are familiar probably with the story in Greenville. Everybody knows, Greenville had a booming downtown, has had one for a while, but their west end was pretty much empty if you went back a decade. Since their ballpark was built, just about 9 years ago now, 48 new businesses have opened and 67 building permits issued just in the west end alone. While Greenville as a city has seen a 5% average property tax increase since the ballpark opened, that west end area has seen a 31% average increase. I'm going to zip through a little bit more quickly. The Bull Street site. This is a depiction. A lot of people want to know where would it be on the Bull Street site. We spent a lot of time with Hughes Development over the course of the last 6 or 8 months looking at this. I think we have found the optimal place. It would be next to the Babcock building. Approximately half the seats would have a view out to the Babcock Dome. Also, it is in the middle of the site, which will encourage development all around it. Also, by being in the middle of the site, we're at least 2 or 2.5 blocks from the nearest existing home. Here's a perspective drawing. Let me zip through. Just hit on 3 things about us and our traffic. The mayor mentioned it a little bit. We're willing to make a substantial private investment in this project. In Fort Wayne, our investment over the course of our 30-year lease will be somewhere in the neighborhood of $66 million, we estimate. And I say estimate because a lot of what we're taking on is variable costs. Our deal with the city of Fort Wayne was that their investment in the facility was fixed up front, and then we cover everything else for the next 30 years. So if it costs more to operate, if there are more capital expenditures needed, things like that, that's all on us. So we had a big investment and we're able to define the city's contribution up front. We also, as the mayor mentioned, have a track record of operating success. Our team in Fort Wayne last year, it's a Class A team, and outdrew 57 of the other 59 Class A teams, but also, I think important to note, because a lot of people get fixated on what level of baseball is coming here. I will tell you that from a fan perspective and from an economic development perspective, really doesn't matter. The difference between Class A baseball, AA baseball, AAA baseball, nobody in this room would know the difference if I sat down and put a bunch of players in the field. You know, a guy who's in Class A this week could be in AA next week. But our single A team in Fort Wayne, Indiana last year outdrew 27 of the 30 AA teams, so 90% of them, and 13 of the 30 AAA teams. From an economic development perspective especially, it's how many people we are drawing that matters, obviously not the level of baseball in the field. We've operated 2 other teams as well with a good deal of success. Most importantly, our facility in Fort Wayne, we are hosting more than double the non-baseball events of any other facility around minor league baseball. As the mayor mentioned, we had about 30 different cities and teams come to us over the last 2 years alone just to study what we were doing and try to figure out how to do it. Our facility was twice named the #1 minor league facility in the country. The 3rd year it was ranked #2, what we thought was an egregious error. A different publication, the year that our ballpark opened, decided that our ballpark was the best new ballpark built. And we opened in the same year as the new Yankee Stadium, which cost $1.6 billion. And the final thing I'll mention, and I'll just leave this up here for people to read so I can get to questions, but being a good partner in the community is a big part of what we need to do to be successful. We don't have famous players. Our players one day will go on to be famous, but we don't have marketable players right now. What we do is we create a fun, inexpensive environment, and we make sure that we are well tied into the community. So over the last 5 years, we've donated approximately $400,000 to local charities, nonprofits, and community organizations. We run one of the largest charitable programs in our region, a reading program that has over 100,000 students enrolled in it on an annual basis. And we partner with a wide range of existing local community and charity organizations. And with that, I'll take a breath and just take people's questions. I know we're short on time.
Back on the conceptual drawing, opposed to, I think we're looking at 2 days.
And I apologize for the speed there. I grew up in New York, so I speak quickly. This one, or you want one earlier?
One just.
Site plan?
Yes. Could you say, Jason, what roads are those? I can't really see.
Sure. So sorry. This is Bull Street down here. This is the Mills Building and the Babcock Building. You've got Colonial here, and the hospital is up there. You've got Calhoun, obviously, over there, and then Hardin on the back side. Whoop, I'm tripping. Yes, sir.
Jason, why, I mean, I know you've studied it. Our last minor league baseball failed.
Yes.
Why? And I mean, you think one's going to make it now. Why?
You need 3 things to be successful in minor league baseball, very basically. You know, number 1 is you need to have the right market. I don't think that's why this failed previously. I don't think it has anything to do with the market. The other 2 things, at least one of them I know was wrong. The third one I honestly can't speak to. The second thing you need is the right facility. And the facility that you had there down on Assembly Street is nothing like what we're talking about. I mean, I didn't get to leave up pictures of what we did in Fort Wayne, but our facility in Fort Wayne on a per square foot basis is as nice or nicer than any major league park you'll go into. Because we don't have famous baseball players, and because we're not just catering to the hardcore fans, but trying to provide an enjoyable experience for families, for business entertainment, for young professionals and college students to go out and, you know, have a drink and socialize before wherever else they're going to go for the evening, it really matters what kind of facility you have, how good that experience can be. And you know, we would not suggest that we could come back to Columbia and be successful in that facility. Between the state of the facility itself and, quite frankly, the limited amount of things around there, we don't think that that would be a recipe for success. The third thing you need is, you know, even the best situation, the best ballpark, and the best city, if you're not operating it correctly, it won't work. And one of the things that I know was wrong with the previous facility, because I've heard this from citizens around Columbia, over the past year or so that we've been up here talking to people. Extremely important is consistent investment into the facility. We have put, our ballpark in Fort Wayne opened in 2009. We have already put over $3 million additional dollars beyond what was committed in our contract with the city into that facility in 5 years. You need to keep it fresh, you need to keep improving the facility. If you're not moving ahead, you're falling behind. So we were named the #1 ballpark in the country in 2012, and between 2012 and 2013, we privately funded a $900,000 addition to the ballpark, an improvement. So that ballpark there was going in the wrong way. You have to operate it with an eye toward the long term with constant investment. You know, we think that on the Bull Street site with development around it and with a top-notch facility, that Columbia could be a spectacular market for minor league baseball.
With
Yes.
8,000 seats, how many cars will you need to park and where will the parking be?
Sure. First of all, we find that in an urban ballpark, depending on how many people show up on any given day, you have about 3.7 people per car. You know, people don't go to baseball games or concerts or things like that alone as a general matter. They go in groups. The parking has two answers, right? The short-term answer is if we're one of the first things we built on Bull Street, there's about 160 acres of surface parking right there. So that's not a challenge. As the facility develops over time, or as the property develops over time, what you will see is all the other uses that exist will demand parking. So if you have an office building, for instance, that office building will demand parking, but that office building's parking deck will be filled from 8 a.m. in the morning maybe to about 5 or 6 o'clock in the evening. Our games take place on nights and weekends. So our facility is what the people in development call a counter-cyclical development. We are bringing traffic and cars and things like that onto the site at a time when, as a general matter, cars and traffic are leaving downtown, not coming in. So in Greenville, for instance, they didn't build a single additional parking space when that ballpark was built. They use all those surface parking lots around the area that are used for other things during the day. In Fort Wayne, we did not demand a single additional parking spot built as part of our ballpark. Neither of those facilities has parking issues, nor do any of the other downtown facilities. The only reason you would need to build parking, if we went and built this thing out off a highway someplace, then you would need a huge parking lot. But if you build it in a mixed-use area, then you can leverage off of the existing infrastructure.
What do you expect attendance to be?
Well, in Fort Wayne, we're averaging about 6,000 fans a game for baseball. We would anticipate that we could do about as well here.
6 here?
Yeah, in the neighborhood of 6,000 fans a year.
Charleston and Savannah.
In Charleston, they are averaging roughly 4,000. Charleston is, it's a great market. Their facility is a little bit dated, and their facility is not in the most convenient spot. It's not in a walkable environment. For those of you who know, it's sort of up. It's surrounded on 2 sides by marsh and on a 3rd side by the Citadel. Our team in Savannah, we bought the team in Savannah. It was averaging almost nothing. We have doubled the attendance there in the 5 years we've owned it. Now that team is averaging about 2,000 fans a game. But going back to one of your earlier questions, we play in a facility there that was built in 1926, and that isn't in the downtown area, several miles outside of downtown. And those things are challenges. Yes, sir.
The other use factor could be real attractive, I think, being between Charlotte and Atlanta for concerts or events or touring companies that come in. How will seating compare in that? You said 8,000 to the Koger Center or to the township?
Well, we target concerts at a facility like this. Our key concert size is somewhere between 6,000 and 14,000 people. So we can fit a lot more people in for a concert, for instance, than we could for a baseball game, because we can put people on the field for a concert. So I think it's meaningfully larger than what would generally be hosted, based on my understanding of the township. The other thing to realize, a lot of people ask about the Colonial Life Center, for instance. There's a big difference between the concert tours that are going on during the spring, summer, and fall. There are outdoor tours and indoor tours. So in Fort Wayne, we have been hosting about 3 or 4 major concerts a year and another probably 10 or so what I would call smaller regional concerts. Not a single one of those. There's also an arena in Fort Wayne that Polestar consistently rates one of the top 10 or 15 of its size. It's about a 13,500 seat arena. We have never once had an act that came and called us and called them and said, hey, who will give us a better deal? Where should we play? The outdoor and the indoor concerts, it's an entirely different set of equipment, entirely different tours. You know, if it's an outdoor tour, if we didn't exist, it would just pass Fort Wayne by, for example. Indoor tours, the people who come with the indoor equipment, even if the arena didn't exist, they wouldn't be able to come and play our facility. So an outdoor and an indoor venue are entirely complementary. There really is not any significant overlap. In 5 years, we haven't had a single one.
Let me ask you one question. I know you started to say this is going to probably be a single A ball club that's going to come here.
Yes.
And that you can't hardly tell the difference, but as they grow and that sort of thing, is there any chance for it to become a 2A or a 3A like they have in Charlotte? Because, I mean, and is that a possibility, or is that something that's just, it's going to be a single A level?
The, what kind of team is in a market is determined almost exclusively by geography. AAA is the only league that flies. Single and double A teams travel by bus. So for example, in Fort Wayne, as I mentioned, last year we outdrew 27 of the 30 double A teams. So we will have people in the market say, hey, should we be moving up to double A? And the answer is the nearest double A team from Fort Wayne is about 5.5 hours. That's the closest team. So if you look at where, say, the center of that league is, it's very far away. Here in Columbia, the same sort of thing. There are 3 double A leagues in the country. One is exclusively in Texas and Oklahoma, which obviously is too far to bus. Another is up in the Northeast. The furthest south team, I think, is in Bowie, Maryland, which is also, I mean, most of these teams, you have teams as far north as Maine. So again, not feasible to bus. There is a Southern League. The nexus of the Southern League has moved south and west over time, with most of the teams in Alabama or Mississippi. You know, the Southern League could potentially be a possibility somewhere down the road, but it depends on how the league moves over time, in other words, where the franchise is located. But most likely what you're looking at is a single A team. Just to give you an example, not just Fort Wayne, the mayor mentioned before, there's a single A team in Dayton, Ohio, that in its existence has outdrawn every double A team every year, and outdrawn almost every triple A team. And they ask the same sorts of questions there. You're not handicapped in any way. You know, the level of baseball is something that really only matters on a sheet of paper. As I said, people sitting in the stands watching can't tell the difference, and certainly from an economic development standpoint, a fan draw standpoint, we haven't seen any difference. Yes, sir.
Jason, regarding the economic impact, have you done any studies on the direct job creation and the indirect job creation?
Yes, a little bit. That's one of the slides I glossed over. So, there are 3 types of jobs that you see growing out of facilities like this. 2 of them can be measured relatively easily. The third one is a lot harder to measure, and you need people to do these complicated economic studies. You know, one is how many jobs are created during construction, and over the course of the time that the construction is done, they measure that. In Fort Wayne, I want to say that it was somewhere in the neighborhood of 500 to 600 jobs. I think the Brailsford and Dunleavy study here in Columbia predicted that if a similar facility was built now in Columbia, you'd see somewhere in the order of 800 to 900 jobs created. That's similar to the kind of numbers we've seen in some facilities around the country, certainly. The second thing is direct jobs. Who do we employ? Our team in Fort Wayne, we employ 36 full-time people, and we employ about 550 part-time and seasonal people. When I say part-time and seasonal, some of those include people who are cooks, waiters, waitresses, things like that, that actually work for us year-round, work on an hourly and as-needed basis, rather than being salaried. The 550 jobs, if you translate the hours based on 40-hour work weeks, translates into about 80 jobs. So if you add that to the 36, you've got 115 jobs, give or take. The third thing is very hard to measure. Like I said, Fort Wayne has already seen $100 million of development around the ballpark. You know, in Durham, they've seen $600 million. We have not in Fort Wayne done a study to see how many people are employed in the new businesses that have opened in those buildings. I think the city is looking at doing one of those studies. A lot of times those studies are done about 10 years in, just because you can have a better, a broader base to measure from. There was a study, here's one. So in San Diego, this is obviously much bigger numbers than we would be talking about here, bigger city, bigger project. But in San Diego, they built a ballpark in what was then the worst area in San Diego. 70% of the land that you see in these pictures in what's now the ballpark district was either vacant, outdoor parking, or warehouse storage. The city has seen $1.58 billion in private development in just the first 10 years. This was a study done about 5 or 6 years ago by the Local Economic Development Corporation. They saw $1.6 billion in private development, $1.2 billion in new spending, and they measured 19,000, a little bit over 19,000 jobs created. Now again, what we're talking about is something that is a considerably smaller both investment and impact, but I think that the minor league facilities are so much less expensive than major league facilities that you actually, per dollar spent, you actually see more jobs created just because it's, it's so much smaller of an upfront investment. Yes, sir. Sorry, you saw your hand go up like 3 times already.
Jason, I got a question for you and perhaps for the mayor as well. I'm very familiar with the Myrtle Beach Pelicans and the joint venture between the city and Horry County, City of Myrtle Beach and Horry County on the baseball stadium there. The question to you is tourism. They're primarily having to rely and are dependent upon tourism to put seats together, people in seats. And I guess the follow-up question perhaps for the mayor is there any conversation going on with the counties and the surrounding municipalities as to some type of joint venture to help support this initiative?
Yeah, I'll answer the tourism question quickly, and then the mayor can answer the other. In certain markets, tourists are a big part of who go to these games, which is great. Cities I've talked about that are very successful, Fort Wayne, Indiana, Dayton, Ohio, these are not cities that are big tourist draws, but they have extremely successful minor league baseball teams. I heard a chuckle at Fort Wayne being a tourist destination from somebody over here. One thing we do, though, and we do this in Fort Wayne, we look at doing the same thing here, is our games take place, other than Sundays, we play in the evenings. We play at 7:05 at night, Monday through Saturday. So one of the things that we do in Fort Wayne would look at doing here is partnering with other tourist attractions you have. From what we have learned about Columbia and certainly what we've seen in our years operating in Fort Wayne, you get a lot of people say they want to come to the zoo. They'll drive in from an hour and a half away, they'll go to the zoo, and then they'll get in their car and they'll drive back home. The only thing they did in Columbia was go to the zoo. One of the things we've done in Fort Wayne, and they have a nationally rated children's zoo there as well, and they have a science museum that's very much like your adventure. We would go and put together tourist packages. We would partner with local hotels and the CDB, and we would get, people have a pass that lets them come and, say, go to the zoo during the day, come to the baseball game at night, stay at a hotel that evening, and go to, the science museum the next day. And we have found, pretty good success with that in terms of converting people who would normally be day tourists into weekend tourists. The kind of events that we have that are significant tourist draws are concerts. We find from concerts, because the vast majority of tickets now are purchased by credit card, we get zip codes with that. We get people regularly from 2.5 to 3 hours away from concerts. People, if you have the right band that people are interested in, they will drive long distances for that. And those people are staying at hotels that night, eating at local restaurants and all that sort of thing.
So as a follow-up to that, on your demographics and your analysis and assessment for success, how much is dependent upon tourism?
Very little.
Okay.
Again, for concerts, part of the reason we can sell, 12 or 14,000 tickets to a concert is because people are coming from far away. But for the baseball portion of it, the tourists are gravy for us. We do that more to help the tourist industry in town than relying on that to, sort of bump up attendance.
Jason, did my old hometown of Richmond, Virginia lose its AAA team?
Richmond did. Richmond's AAA team moved to Gwinnett, Georgia, but a AA team has moved into Richmond, and Richmond is actually in the middle of the exact discussion we're having here. So they're looking at building a new ballpark down in, I guess it's called Shotlow Bottom. And
that would be a lot better than where it is now.
Yeah. Well, again, that's, the current facility is out off a highway and not a terribly accessible area. And there are a lot of, Shotlow Bottom is an area with a lot of history, and that's more than the economics of it. I think the economics of it in Richmond look very good, but there are political considerations with that area that are causing people to try to decide whether that's the right place to do a project like this.
I would say I did speak with the mayor of Durham. The folks from Richmond were down in Durham just a couple weeks ago to see their successes on this model as well. As relates, we dialogue with our friends at the county and every single day to find ways in which we can work together on different opportunities around the city and around the region. But as it relates to the Bull Street site, we have taken this on as a city effort, as a city endeavor, trying to, in a compressed period of time, bring that property online in a way in which can benefit the entire city and this region. So, thank you, Al. Thank you all.
We have a small token of our appreciation for you being here and sharing with us. Thank you very much for being here.
Yeah, just let them know I'll hang out.
Sure. Yeah, they're going to hang around. I'd like to say on behalf of the Rotary Club, thank you for coming, and thank you for the commitment the city has made to give everybody a voice. I know you've had a lot of events around the city, and you're still trying to get input. You start talking about spending money, people perk their ears up. So anyway, they will stick around for any of you that got more pointed questions you want to ask. And they'll be up here to answer probably for as long as you want. At least Jason will. Steve thinks he's probably going to go get some rest somewhere. All right, so I want to remind you, if Roger has not done so, we've had a focus on fun this year that we hope will continue on for some time to come. Had a great social last month at the Woodrow Wilson House, but there's a chance to take your sweetheart on a train ride. As I understand from Roger, on tops of the mountains right at sunset, what mountain there is up there. And so if you are interested, he has saved 24 spots for us. And, you know, they may go today. So you might want to sign up and think about that. All right, so Jim, you're going to come and you're going to lead us in Oh Beautiful for Spacious Skies. Is that right? If y'all all stand and be dismissed after the song.
Oh, beautiful for spacious skies, for amber waves of rain, for purple mountains' majesty above the fruited plain. America, America, God shed His grace on thee, and crown thy good with brotherhood, from sea to shining sea.
Nice to see you.
Doing a fabulous job.
Thanks. I'm gonna get you on camera for saying that.
Oh yeah.